What makes the Galveston Naval Museum so special? Well, first of all, you have the USS Cavalla, also known as the Lucky Lady and the Avenger of Pearl Harbor. We're going to explore her and find out why she's so unique. We also have the USS Stewart, happens to be only one of two preserved US Navy destroyers, and the only one of its class, which was an Escort-class ship. I paid $14 to get up and close and personal with history. However, veterans 65 and older and children 5 to 11 get in for $10, so it's a little bit cheaper for them. First, I'm going to check out the USS Carp. It was a World War II ship. After it got decommissioned, the conning tower was preserved and it's been on loan to the Galveston Naval Museum since 2001. It's a little bit of a tight space in there, so I didn't crawl in there. But yeah, this is a pretty neat little feature that they have, even though it's only part of a ship. Then the Tautog, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. It ran the seas between 1964 and 1997, eventually was decommissioned, and of course the sail was preserved and also on loan at the museum as well. Initially, when I arrived at Seawolf Park, I thought the submarine was called the USS Seawolf. However, I found out that I was wrong because it's the USS Cavalla, as I mentioned earlier in the video. It's called Seawolf Park in memory of a submarine that was lost during World War II due to friendly fire. Unfortunately, it was sunk by our own forces. My Uber driver told me that Seawolf Park is also a great place for fishing, which I didn't do as part of this video. And also I did see that there was areas for kids to play, and I saw that admission to Seawolf Park is not the same as admission into the Galveston Naval Museum. And of course there's some very reverent memorials that they have set up. The memorials at Seawolf Park remind us that freedom really is not free at all. So going into the USS Cavalla, if you're claustrophobic, you don't like tight spaces, and you can't handle stairs, this may not be the place for you. I'm 6'3" and a very heavy frame. I did have some hard time trying to move around in here, but it was definitely manageable. But my head was nearly hitting the ceiling. In here, I couldn't believe how cramped some of the spaces were. I can only imagine what it must have been like for the men that served on this ship, having to sleep literally right above the torpedoes. This ship had 54 enlisted personnel as well as 6 officers. And as you can see, even this toilet here, like there's just not enough room for anything. I can only imagine what it'd be like to be on this ship with nearly 60 people. Now, there were parts of the ship I can't get into. You can get into a lot more places if you do a hard hat tour, which is a narrated guided tour. Unfortunately, I didn't have time for that during this visit. But if you did do that, please leave me in the comments. Let me know how it was. But you kind of give an idea what the daily life was on board. Now, this ship was commissioned on February 29th of 1944, which is leap year, which is considered to be lucky, and it was decommissioned June 3rd of 1968. During its first ever patrol on its way to the Philippines, it spotted Japanese forces and was able to report on the location and gave intelligence that led to a victory for the United States in the Battle of the Philippine Sea, also known as the Marinara Turkey Shoot. And so it did play a very critical role. Just a few days later, the ship, the USS Cavalla, came across a Japanese aircraft carrier that was used to attack Pearl Harbor and successfully sank it. It shot 6 torpedoes at the Japanese ship, and the Japanese ship did not survive. I believe it was called the Shokaku, and I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. But if let me know in the comments if I said it right, because I'm kind of curious if I said it correctly or not. It was also neat how they did have some of the personal effects of individuals on display to kind of make it seem more believable and lived in. And these bunk beds here, I swear, for anybody who is tall, that might have been a nightmare trying to sleep in them, would be my guess. And even the officers had very cramped living areas. Some of the areas were blocked off with plexiglass, so you couldn't actually get in them. So you might see a little bit of reflection here and there that was caused by that. I was noticing as we're going through here that there's modern air conditioning units. You're going to see here to the right, next to the sign that says this is a war machine. And so it kind of made me wonder if they even had any kind of climate control back during World War II. So if you know the answer to that, that'd be something that would be kind of awesome if you put in the comments. Let us know. The quality of life on this thing, especially when it was below the ocean surface, might have been a little bit cramped and uncomfortable is my guess, but that's one of the things about the people that sign up and serve in the military is they're willing to take on a lot of responsibilities and also a lot of suffering for the rest of us. So that's why we should always show respect for our veterans. I like how there's little interesting facts, information, little poster boards that are put throughout the ship, so that way you can kind of have a better context of what was going on during that time period. And then this is actually one of the torpedoes here in the front, so it's kind of neat the way they got lit up so you can see it better. So afterwards, we're going to go on to the USS Stewart now. Now, this ship is a little bit less congested than the Cavalla is, but you're still going to have to do some walking and stairs. For most people, it should be fine. However, if you got somebody with mobility issues, this part of the video is here to show you, but it's probably not going to work out, unfortunately. So you will not find a ship like the USS Stewart anywhere else because they no longer exist. This ship never actually saw combat, according to what I read anyway, but it was used during World War II as an escort ship for transporting everything from cargo supplies to troops, for slower moving convoys. It also was involved in a rescue mission involving 2 tankers that ran into each other. The ship was used to rescue the crew as well as tow the disabled ships back to port. So, I mean, it has done its time in service here. And there were some areas below that were off limits, unfortunately. But again, I had mentioned earlier, there are hard hat tours available, so you might get to see more if you actually take one of those tours. Now, I also saw that they actually allow sleepovers too. So that might be something that might be interesting if you're in the Galveston area. It does seem fitting that this ship actually is going to display over in Galveston, because the ship itself was actually built about an hour away in Houston, and then it was floated out through Galveston in order to eventually enter service for the U.S. military. The ship held 201 enlisted men, 8 officers. And one thing I noticed that these bathrooms use lack of privacy, even on the submarine. It just kind of takes me back to a coworker that I used to have that used to go hide in the bathroom or to get out of work. So I'm assuming that the tactic wouldn't work on this ship. But this ship did see service from May 31st of 1943 all the way through 1947 before joining the mothball fleet. Back here, from what I understand, these things that look like cages, those were to drop depth charges. This ship was sometimes used as well as designed to be a hunter-killer for enemy German U-boats during that time period. This did serve over the Atlantic, and it was on its way over to the Pacific when World War II ended. If you ever take a cruise out of Galveston, on your way out when you sail past on the cruise ship looking off from the deck, you will see Seawolf Park. This is the same ship and submarine that you can actually see as you're leaving. This, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is a 3-inch gun. Please let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. But I was trying to look up a little bit of information, and if I understood what I was reading correctly, if I was even looking at the right information, this was used as not only as an anti-aircraft, but also ship-to-ship or weapon as well. So even if another submarine or another ship was in sight, it could be used either way. So it's supposed to be a multi-purpose weapon, and you can actually still move the weapon around by cranking it, as you could see earlier. And even today, there's still restoration projects going on, as you can come in here and see that we even have modern tools and supplies there to continue working on the ship. So it looks like it used to be a machine shop, so I guess some things never change, even on board a decommissioned ship that's now a museum ship. There sure are a lot of narrow hallways all over the place around here. So you gotta be prepared, so you have plenty of firefighting equipment in case something happens on the ship, as they could be on their own. And this is really like a floating city here. You even have a pretty decent sized kitchen area. And this isn't the only place that looked like that they had for food, but this was like the main area as far as I could tell. Even an area coming up where you can actually get books from, which it looks like it's going to be part of a mess hall in here where there's going to be plenty of tables. I'm assuming that this may have also doubled as a meeting room as well. If you get a chance to see the officers' country, can you please let me know in the comments when that section opens up. Plus, I'm sure other people that are watching this video in the future might appreciate knowing that as well. To me, it looked like the sleeping arrangements weren't quite as bad on the USS Stewart as it was the submarine. And even though the space was still pretty cramped, though. And this is back in the same mess hall. The officers' quarters were actually right off that area. that I had told you that we were just looking at. We're still in the same spot. The USS Stewart was actually named after an 1812 captain of the USS Constitution named Charles Stewart, and there's been at least 3 ships named USS Stewart. In fact, during World War II, the other USS Stewart actually still existed. However, it had been captured by the Japanese, and it was actually a Japanese ship for much of World War II until it got liberated by the United States again. So to me, this looks like the area where the enlisted men had slept. Either way, I sure imagine it got kind of crowded in here, and would hate to be around somebody who happened to be snoring a lot. So this room was a little bit nicer than what we saw earlier for what I believe was the enlisted, for the petty officers, I guess, maybe. I don't know. Let me know if you're in the Navy, because I may not be getting this right, and let me know what your thoughts are and any other information I may be missing that you can fill in. That would be awesome. Soon, we will have something come up that made me think of McDonald's, and specifically how the ice cream machine always seems to be broken over at McDonald's. And here is the non-working ice cream machine, although it would be pretty cool if it still worked to this day. So we're going to go up to the deck and check out some more weapons here. These things are huge. I put my hand aside next to them just for size comparison, so you can kind of get an idea what it was like. Up here, I believe these are, not, if I'm not mistaken, again, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I believe these are 40mm weapons. If I'm wrong, please, by any means, let me know. I'm not going to get hurt over it. And these are on display, so you can actually get up close and personal to them, and they'll look like they're plugged off. But, yeah, they were pretty neat to look at, though. I find these things very interesting. I could probably sit there and stare at them for almost an hour. We're going to find some holes. Let me know in the comments what you think these are. I don't think that they're bullet holes based upon what I've been looking up. I think these just might be from storm damage and just wear and tear. But let me know for sure what you think, or if you happen to know. But I did try to look up if the ship had been fired upon. I couldn't find any evidence of it, at least not on my research, unless I missed it, of course. To me, the holes didn't quite match bullet holes. And then, of course, on the top, you can see into where the brains of the ship were, everything from the bridge and then the pilot room, as well as some of the where a lot of the important upper level functions went on. These days, we're very dependent upon computer technology, and it's amazing that they moved this entire machine and they navigated around the world without using any kind of computers. In fact, it was even designed without computers. And this is when they used to have to sometimes communicate by using flags. If you are planning on going on a cruise out of Galveston, Texas, or if you're planning on staying in Galveston, I will have a playlist guide for you at the end of this video. You'll see it on the screen as it pops up. It's going to be for cruise ship passengers, as well as places that cruise ships stop at. You'll see at the very end when it pops up, and it'll have a picture of me in a cruise ship next to it. So the captain of the USS Stewart did have slightly better accommodations than average out of everybody that we've seen so far. And then the main radio room, you know, these days I can imagine how different it is compared to what it was to actually work those radio rooms back then. In the video, it might look like it's easy to get lost in here, but believe it or not, the layout of the ship is kind of intuitive, so it wasn't really that hard for me to find my way around and never had problems getting lost. These, I believe, are mortars, like for sea. They're specially designed where they don't explode as soon as they hit the water. Instead, they go below the water and hit when they get their target. And these are some of the other armament that you'll see on the top of the deck, including the place where the anchors were. So this is definitely a nice little must-see area. And then, of course, you also get excellent views of Seawolf Park, as well as the Galveston Bay itself, if you go up top here. While I was on the top of the ship, I did notice that there appeared to be some sort of landing craft that they were working on, so I'm going to show you that here in a minute. But they do have a gift shop here if you want to buy any souvenirs. Here's the landing craft I was talking about. It looks like it's under renovation and repair. So it just looked like an interesting feature. There's not information about it, so maybe this might be part of a future exhibit when it is done. So if you go in here and find this part of an exhibit, please let me know in the comments. That way we can kind of keep everybody updated. That's going to be the top view of the same vessel. And then you can actually see like the torpedo, so how they look like that as they might have been launching from the water. You can almost imagine what that would be like from underneath the waves. So these are actually bathrooms. They're in the trailer, but they're some of the cleanest outhouses I've ever seen. And then they do have a lot of different signs and memorials set up for you to do some reading, and also you can learn a little bit more detail about the history and also some of the names and people that had served and that were associated with the park, as well as the ships themselves. So I hope you found this useful. Please check out one of these other videos popping up.